Welcome back to Cruder.com. In this next video on charts, we're going to continue to build upon what we just learned with combo charts, but this time we're going to look at it in a finance perspective. Right here I have a financial modeling example, and let me set up the scenario here. So let's say we start a new business, and let's say this business is going to be a construction business. And to start your construction business, you know that you're going to have to spend $100,000 just to start, which would be used to, let's say, purchase equipment and trucks and then have some money in the bank. Then you say, well, based on my estimates, I think in the first year, I'm going to come away with an extra $25,000 in my pocket. Second year, another $25K, third, fourth, and fifth, all the way up to $125,000 in my pocket in the fifth year. So these are inputs right here. And then also we need to have some more inputs. We need to understand, well, how much is this capital, this $100,000? How much does it cost you? And so we're going to make this simple and just say 5% that this money is costing you. So basically, you need to be making more than 5% on your money on this $100,000 in this venture to therefore make this business venture a good idea. Now, if you're not familiar with these four acronyms, the NPV, net present value, IRR, I have some notes down here, the reinvestment rate, and the MIRR, that's okay. Just know that these numbers are used to evaluate how good or bad this investment will be. We're showing positive numbers, so in short, positive numbers are good, and we'll leave it at that. This investment of $100,000, which will yield us these cash flows over the next 5 years, is a good investment. The next thing that I've done with this information is I've added it to a 5-year discounted cash flows table here. And what this is saying is that at the beginning, year 0, we're going to spend $100,000. Then in year 1, we're going to make $25,000. Now, you may not be familiar with this type of thinking, but $25,000 in a year from today is really not as much as it's worth today. So we have to, what they call, discount this back to its present value or today's value. So it's going to be a lesser amount of $23,000. And we're going to do the same thing for year 2. $25,000 gets discounted back to $22,000 and so forth for year 3 and 4. And then year 5 is actually falling off. So let me just pop this open. So what we want to do is we want to see what is the value of this investment today. And as of today, if we're thinking in today's dollars, well, $100,000 today is today's money. But $25,000 in a year from now is a little less. $25,000 in 2 years from now is even a little bit less than that, and so forth all the way down the chain. So when we add this column up, it tells us our net present value. This amount here ties to our NPV that we calculated above. This is a calculation check that we're just doing on the spreadsheet. Now, I know that this may be very complicated to some people, but we're trying to make it simple, right? We're trying to make all of these examples that we've been looking at so far pretty simple by adding in a chart. So let's go ahead and do that and take a look at this chart that I've added in here. So I'm going to pop this bottom one open. I'm going to pop this back up a bit. And notice that this chart here for the 5-year discounted cash flows, let's take a look at it. It's only graphing 2 pieces of data, the accumulated balance and then our MIRR, which is the modified internal rate of return. So what type of return are you making on basically the $100,000 that you first invested? In the beginning, you just started on year 0. So after the first year, you've lost money, lost money, lost money. Finally, in year 4 and in year 5, you've turned from a negative return on your investment to a positive return on your investment. And that's basically what we're trying to show here in this picture. And we've used a combo chart to do it. We have dollars on our left y-axis and then percentages on our right y-axis. So now the fun begins, and let's go ahead and delete this and set it up from scratch. So first things first, let's grab our data, select this here. So we're only going to chart out our accumulating balance and the MIRR for the secondary axis. Pop into Insert tab on the ribbon and pop down on the combo chart. I'm going to do it a little bit differently. Notice when I hover over this one, it gives me a flat line, but then when I hover over this one, it automatically gives me my secondary axis. So we could click this one, but there's one thing that happens on this that I don't like. It's that it already pushes my x-axis labels here at the very bottom. And it tells me that I'm actually at the bottom of the chart. So I'm going to hit Control 1 to get my task pane open for the format axis. And right here on my labels, Excel's telling me that, hey, I've got it next to my axis. But when I change it to hitting low, it doesn't do anything. I'm going to show you a different way to set up the chart so that we can put a line across the 0 line here. So I'm going to X out of this, delete this chart, go back up to the Insert tab on the ribbon, and instead of choosing one of these options here, I'm going to say Create Custom Combo Chart. And when I'm in here, this is the custom charting dialog box that you can create any type of chart from. So at the bottom, we're already at Combo, and it notices that we have 2 series, and it's picking those up. And the second one, it's saying, hey, I see that you want it as a line. You could come in here and change it to anything you want. You could do the same thing with the cluster and change it from the cluster to any other style of chart that you like. But all I'm going to do here is select that I want the line chart on a secondary axis. And then I'm going to press OK. And now I have the same chart, except for it's a tiny bit different. It's really that the x-axis labels, this horizontal axis labels, now it's in the middle. And when I press Control 1 to bring up the task pane and scroll down to my labels, Excel says that it's next to the axis. But when I throw it to the low side, it's at the bottom, and then I have a big square around it. So now when I go to the paint bucket and change my line to saying, hey, I want a solid line, and I can change that to red if I'd like. So I'm going to do a dark red and X out of here. Now I'm able to stick in this solid line here, which a user can easily see. Now I'm going to say that this one is done selecting my data and inserting my chart. The next thing is auto styling. So let's hit the paintbrush, come on over, see if there's anything that I like. And I've already kind of started to edit it. So it's going to change up my line in the middle there. So I'm actually not going to style it to anything. I'm just going to skip that step, and then I'm doing auto layout. Let's go to the design tab and quick layout. See if I like any of these other ones. And I kind of like this one because it gives me axis titles already in the right spots. And then it gives me a legend on the right, and it still keeps my title. So I'm going to stay here, call that done. The last thing that we're going to do is customize this thing so that it looks like the old chart that we had. So let's start with the easy things. Let's start with these titles, equals the 5 years discounted cash flows. Next, let's change this axis to cash flow USD, US dollars. And let's change our axis title to the horizontal axis to years. One thing I noticed quickly is that my horizontal axis actually has the wrong labels. Let's reselect this so that it's pulling from column A here, 0 through 5. And all we got to do is select the table anywhere on the table, pop into our chart tools, the design tab on the ribbon, and reselect our data. So now instead of having Excel just populate 1 through 5, we'll say, hey, grab this specific range on our chart and link it and hit OK. Now we have years 0 through 5. Let's put a border around all of these labels, so my title, my axes, and then also this legend. And we could do Control 1 and pop into the task pane here, but we can simply right click on these and we can get some styling done in here. So in outline, I'm going to do the third gray and leave it at that, and do it for all 4 labels on the outside here. Third one, right click, outline, the third gray. Same thing with this one, right click, outline, third gray. Now let's go ahead and edit these axes, the vertical axis on the left and the right side, so that they have values that make sense. Let's use something that's divisible by 4 so that we can go up by 25%, all the way up to 100, and then negative 25% to get to negative 100. And let's do 160, so we'll do 40,000, 80,000, 120,000, and then 160,000 on the left axis. So to do that, all I've done is select this axis, and now I'm in Format Axis. I'm going to go to my Axes Options, and then change my Axis Options by saying my minimum is going to be 160, and then my maximum will be positive 160. Then the units for my major axis will be 40,000 each, and I think that looks good. Let's switch it up on my secondary axis. So I selected that one. I'm in the same area, and my minimum is -1, and my positive needs to be 1 to get to 100%. Then we want to increment it by 25%. So I did this purposefully so that each line represents both axis labels. My 25% line is the same line as my $40,000 line. This will help any reader of the chart to be able to read it more accurately. Now let's take a look at the column chart here, and let's invert these colors on the bottom once it passes the 0 mark so that they don't look the same as the positive values. So I'll come over here to the task pane for the Format Data Series and go to this paint bucket and look at the fill that we have going on here. And we can simply just click Invert if negative. And notice that Excel inverted those colors. And right now I'm selected on automatic, and so it's automatically turned it to white. But you could go in here and say I want a solid fill, and then you get 2 colors to choose from. So I could change this white to something else if I'd like. I'm going to leave it at white though for now. And then while we're editing our data series for our column chart, let's do our line chart as well and select this one. And let's put in a marker on here. So our marker options need to say built in, and let's do a circle. And then let's change the color to a solid fill of a gray. We're going to have to switch the border of that as well so that it's the same gray. And then we're going to have to change the line so that it's a gray too. So solid line, gray, and they're all gray. Now it's looking pretty good. The last thing that I want to do is put a little gradient to this background to give it a contrast so that it's not looking like it's just on a blank white canvas. So to do that, we just need to select the chart area, and we're going to go to Fill and Gradient Fill. So I'm going to scroll down, and here's where all of our gradient options are available. And I'm just going to leave these options the same, but I'm going to change the different colors and move these sliders at different points. So what this is saying is that this first color is the top color, and then this second one comes in about a little bit past half, and then the next color after that a little bit just after that, and then the last color is at the very bottom of this chart. So I'm going to switch this and pull this up here and kind of equally spread them apart so that the top and the bottom will be whites and the middles will be a lighter gray. So I'm going to pop into this one right here and change this to the first gray, and then I'm going to pop into this next one, have that same gray, and then I'm going to pop into the last one and make it white, and make sure that my first one is white as well. So it's not a very noticeable change, but it's enough of a subtle change to make the chart actually look good and pop. One thing I'm noticing now is that my gradient is showing through on these labels, so I'm going to come in here and right click and put my fill to a white so I can see a contrasting white pop through. White, and change this one, right click and change it to white. Right click, fill, white. Okay, I think that's it. I think our customization is complete.